You guys see the screen?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, one sec.
And people who have the doubts, like post that in the chat box, and once they're done with the presentations, like both of them will answer in the, during the end of the meeting.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'll start. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm just gonna give you guys a brief intro to GRE. So let's just get right into it. So first of all is the pattern of it. So the GRE has a total of 7 sections, as you can see. Um, Now the first 2 sections will already be essay, and they'll be for half an hour each. You have to write 2 essays. After that, you have 5 sections of questions, English and math. So you could either have 3 verbals and 2 quant, or 3 quant and 2 verbals. So this is random. You'll only find out during the test. Now, one of the three, so let's say you get 3 verbals. So one of them will be a research section, and the research section isn't scored, but you don't know which one is the research section. So you should attempt every section as if it's an actual section, right? So then there's also a break, which can be around this point. Okay. Um, yeah, and basically the GRE is actually more. This whole thing is around. It'll go up to like 4 hours. You should be able to like handle um, that much intensity for. Yeah. Next is the score. So you can see that out of the 100, only 80 questions count, and the minimum for each section is 130. I mean, for the verbal is 130, and maximum is 170. So this suggests that the 40 questions are there, and it suggests a 1:1 ratio. But this is not the case. It's actually section adaptive. So the first section that you'll get will be a medium section always. Then the second one, which counts, could either be easy, medium, or hard. Now, if in the section you got between 0 and 6, you'll get an easy section. Otherwise, you get a medium and a hard, according to these scorings, right? Now, you also get a bonus or a penalty, according to you don't want an easy section for sure, because in the verbal, you give you a -4 out of your total score. Okay. And if you get a medium section second, you get a bonus of +2. And for hard, you get either 3 or +4. So ideally, you want to get around 14 above in the first section to ensure this bonus. Now, in the quant, there's no bonus actually. Like it's very rare for a +1 bonus, but there is a penalty. So again, you want to get either medium. Yeah, and for writing, the scoring is done by one human and a software. So the scoring is out of 6. And the increments are by 0.5. And if this is basically only a human and a software grade it, and depending on like how, if they agree with your scoring, then another person might not rate it. Okay. Yeah, and you can see the average is also given here for verbal and quant. So 115 is the average for verbal, and 152 is for quant. So this is like for all of the test takers. So this is the usual average, right? Okay, I'll move on. Yeah, so now the pricing. So this test is pretty expensive. It's in India, it's around 15,800, which is around $213. And more on top of that, after the test, there's also a cost of actually sending the report to university. So you can't just tell the university that what score you got. You actually have to send it through the official mail. They have to charge you another 2,000 rupees each. So if you apply to 4 places, that will cost you 2,000 rupees extra. So this is where it gets expensive. But make sure you make use of these 4 free score reports. So right after the test, after you choose to report the scores, they'll give you the names of all of the universities in their system, and you can choose 4 of them to send to free. So you should definitely make use of this. So come prepared with the short names, and you can make use of these reports because then you save 8,000 rupees directly. Right. Okay. Yeah. So now I'm going to move on to the questions and how to solve each one. Okay. So for the essays, uh, first is the issue essay. So this is basically more of like a creative writing kind of thing. They'll ask your opinion on a topic which doesn't really have a direct yes or no answer. Like it'll be some complex thing, maybe about leadership or society. So here you should try to use a lot of examples and then support all your reasonings with good examples. So then next is the argument essay. Again, this is for half an hour, and this one will always be the topic that they present to you, and that proposal will always be bad. So you just have to find 3 unstated assumptions or questions about the proposal, and you have to expand upon them. You have to tell that if this assumption is false, then the argument is weakened. Things like that. And yeah, it's not writing because it's a computer-based test. It'll actually be typing. But the editor is very basic. So there's no spell check, there's no grammar check. Otherwise, it won't be fair to the people who write it on paper, which is very uncommon, but it does happen. So that's why you should like make sure that as you're typing, you leave some time to recheck all of your work. Okay. Yeah. Next, in the verbal section, there's three types of questions. So first is completion. So you can see an example here on the right side. You'll have six questions. They'll have one blank, two blank, or three blank. Now, each question carries the same. So a one blank question is the same marks as a three blank question. And for the three blank, you have to get all of them right to get the one mark. Okay. And for these kind of questions, vocabulary is very, very important. You can see here that most of these words would maybe look uncommon to you. So this is where vocabulary becomes very important on the GRE. Now, my tip for this kind of question is basically you don't even look at the answers first. When you see this question, you look at the blanks and you try to fit in some basic words. Okay, don't look at the answers first. So here you could, the more his success as an artist increased, the more worse his life became, something like that. Then accordingly, you try to find the synonym for that word in the answers. So that's a pretty useful trick. With some practice, you can get the hang of it. Okay. Next is the reading passages. Now there's 10 of these in the section, and they'll mostly be, I think there's one long and around 2 to 3 short ones. Okay. The short ones will have one or two questions, and the long one will also be around like four. Uh, so for this one, my tip is you should try to, instead of reading all these words, because they'd like to throw really big words at you, you should instead try to break down the function of each sentence. Don't try to like read into the meaning, because sometimes you won't understand. Like it'll be some unheard topic of like you've never seen the topic before. Try to break down the meaning of each sentence and its function and the passage, and with that you can usually get like you can usually attempt the questions. Okay, and there's also one question usually in one of the sections about critical thinking. Now this one is completely based on inference, so this will take a bit of time. So I suggest leaving that one for the end. Okay. Uh, yeah, next is the sentence equivalence questions. Now, in this one, there's four per section, and there's just one blank, and you have to pick the two words that would make the sentence mean the same here. So, again, vocabulary will be very important because they'll throw some really big words at you. So, my tip for this one is you should try to don't look at the question in this one and try to find try to pair up these words. Like, let's say A and C, I'm just saying like that. Let's say A and B have the same meaning. So you can pair those up together. And the others won't be synonyms to those two. So then you can break down the question to basically a choice of three instead of a choice of six. Yeah. Okay, with some practice, you can get the hang of it. Now, the order to tackle is you finish these questions first, since there's only four of them. Then you move on to the first type, the text completion. You finish these off. Then you move on to the short passages. Leave the most time for the long passages, because those will actually take a lot of time to read and answer the questions. And then if there's a critical thinking question, you should leave that for last. Okay, so that's it for the verbal section. For the quant, there's again around three types of questions. So those 9 questions will always be something like quantitative comparison. So they'll give you two values, A and B, and you have to tell them which one is larger. So usually the case is that you have to consider a lot of different cases for the value. If it's negative, then A might be bigger. If it's not, then B might be bigger. So if that's the case, then you should say that there's insufficient info to determine. Again, so this is one of the tricky types of questions in GRE, but again, with some practice, you can get the hang of it. Okay. Yeah, here you can see the 4 types of questions. I mean, 4 type of answers for each question. So for every question, this is going to be the same. A is bigger, B is bigger, C means they're both equal, and D means that the info given is insufficient. Okay. Next, data question. So there's going to be 3 questions. They're going to be around the 15 and 16 questions of the 20 questions. And they'll give you some like pie charts or bar charts or something, or like this graph. And from this, you have to try to answer the questions. Yeah. So then the final is the basic MCQ question. So like there'll be around 10 or 15, around 10 of these, and you have to just normally MCQ. Okay. Now for the order, I'd say go with these ones first, because these you can solve pretty simply. Then I'd move on to the quantitative comparison. Then leave the data ones for last, because these will actually take you some time to read the data from the graphs given. Okay. Yeah, and there is a calculator provided in the quant sections. It's a very, very basic calculator. You can't do much with it, so I would like use it very like I wouldn't use it that much. Okay, and yeah, when you are practicing math questions, I'd suggest using the calculator given on your laptops or on your phones, like the very basic one. You can like yeah, that's it. And luckily, this one has a square root function, which most don't. But like yeah, this is the only useful part of the calculator, the square root function. Yeah, and apart from these MCQ questions, like some of these will also be where you have to type in the answer into a box. Like, let's say the answer is 50.667. So they'll tell you to round it to 2 decimal places or 1 decimal place. So read that properly. Otherwise, they'll also ask you to enter a fraction. Like they'll give you two boxes, numerator and denominator. So let me read the question. And yeah, there's no common doubt. This is a 50 out of 100 and half, whichever one you put, is the same. So don't worry about that. Okay. Yeah. So now I'll move on to the material I used and the schedule that I followed. Okay. So I would suggest stick to the official material. Okay. So first of all is math. Now, for the math section, I relied on this 5-pound book of Manhattan questions. So this one is actually really good only for math, though. Like the verbal questions, I wouldn't even look at them in this one. So for the first part of my preparation, I did one chapter a day from this book. There's around like 30 chapters. You can finish this off like maybe one a day or even a day. It's like pretty doable. After that, I moved on to verbal. So for that, this official GRE thing is there. So whatever info I'm giving you here is also available in the book. So you can get this book, and you should also get these two books with it, because these are the main books for preparing. Okay. Yeah. So then after finishing off math, then I moved on to the questions in the official book. Okay. There's 2 chapters in here, one for verbal, one for quant. Don't attempt the practice test yet from this book. Okay. Leave those for the last, because there's only 2 of them in there. Right. They say 4 real practice tests, but 2 of them are online. So I'll get the practice tests after this. Okay. So after finishing off the 5-pound book, then you do 1 chapter from quant, then 1 chapter from verbal, and you keep going like that. Keep you around 14 days. So after that, you're done with the preparation mostly. Then you should practice writing, and you should practice tests. So what I did was I did one writing day. Like I tried to write 4 essays in one day. Then after that, the next day I attempted a practice test, like a full practice test for 4 hours. Then again writing, then again practice test. So you alternate that. Right. Now, for vocabulary, like this is the vocabulary is a very important part of GRE. So for that, there's this Magoosh app. It's called GRE Vocabulary Flashcards. It's by the Magoosh company. This is actually very, very helpful. Like I use this, and you should also only do like the common words. Like these words will guaranteed come. Like I mean, you'll see at least some of the words in the test. So this is very helpful. You don't have to do the basic and advanced ones, because otherwise then the list goes up to like 1,000 words plus. So I do the common words in this app. And also for reading, to improve your reading, the best advice I can give is read like good quality articles from like things like The Economist or the New York Times or something. So you can get a New York Times subscription for pretty cheap, I think 200 rupees a month. So you can get it while you're preparing and then cancel it afterwards. So that's fine. And after all of this material has been exhausted, you can do the big book. So this has 27 practices from all GRE. So it's a bit like the formats of like a little bit different, but the question types are same. And like this is actually a pretty useful book. So after these materials are done and you still have some time to prepare before your test, then you can try to attempt some of the questions in this book. Okay. Yeah, and you can get all these books from same sources you get your textbooks. Like they're pretty easily available. Okay. Yeah. Now, my suggestion for writing is that you should all of the prompts for writing are actually available on the ETS website. So they have a massive 150 of each type, and the question that you'll actually see in the test will come from that 150 pool. Okay. So you should definitely try to, like, when you're practicing, only try to answer those prompts. And when you are practicing, make sure you stick to 30-minute time limit. Like that is the like most crucial part of trying to finish the writing, because usually when you're typing, you might get overboard. So try to stick to 30 minutes only. And again, when you like practice reading, turn off the spell check on your laptop and the like grammar check that's there in my. Okay. So that's pretty much it for my schedule. Then the practice you can use like what I suggest doing first right now, like to gauge where you are at right now. You should take a diagnostic test. So you can take that from Princeton Review or from someone. There's some other companies also. So you can use those tests for diagnostic. Now, for the ETS material, which is the best practice test, there's only a few of them available. So you should always leave them for the. So you can use. So in the official guidebook that I showed here, there's 2 practice tests in this one. So you can use one of those as diagnostic, or you can use one of diagnostic or Princeton's diagnostic. So that's fine. Then there's 2 free online. So these are the like best practice tests online, because they're on the same exact platform that the GRE will be on. So this is available on the ETS website, and these are free. Now, after that, there's also 3 paid ones. So this comes around 1,500 rupees. The good thing about these, like obviously the price is a bit high, but the best thing about these is that you can like this is the most accurate basically. So Power Prep Plus 3 is the latest version of the test, like a very recent version. So the difficulty level on this one will be around the same as what you could expect. Okay. Yeah, and obviously, if you are going for the paid version, you should leave it for last, like maybe 4 days before the test or 2 days before the test. And the good thing about this one is it also marks your writing for you. Yeah, so that's it for practice test. Yeah, and I'm just going to answer some FAQs so we can make the question answer section a bit shorter after this. So yeah, the test will be on the computer. Now for COVID, they introduced an at-home version, but I've heard like a lot of issues with it. So I would generally avoid it. Like issues like the proctor is not there, so they've ended up canceling some. That's also happened. So I would suggest that you go for the actual center version, not the at-home version, because if that does happen, then they're not going to refund the money to you. Right. Yeah. What to bring on test day? You just need an ID card and confirmation. Inside the testing room, there's not going to be anything allowed, like no water bottles or anything. The only time you can drink water is in the 10-minute break. That's there. Okay. Yeah. And for the like how many times you can take the test, it's like depending on where you live, like on the centers around you, it's offered almost every day. Um, but you can take it at a maximum of 5 times in a 365-day period, and it has to be 3 weeks between successive tries. Yeah. Now scores are valid for 5 years, so don't worry about that. And yeah, like I said, ETS official stuff is the best. And for verbal, I'd suggest sticking to the official stuff only. But for math, like I did, the Management 5 book is good. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So I think someone had asked a question also: is Magoosh good? So I think Magoosh is good, but it's like pretty expensive. I would use it mostly for the math. Uh, like it is good for like trying to get the harder questions, but yeah, for the verbal, I don't think they really offer that great questions. Right. Now, when do you receive the scores? So the official score report with like everything scored, the official one will come in 10 to 15 days. But right after the test, you'll be given an option. So you'll be given, do you want to report the current scores or do you want to cancel them? So I would suggest never to cancel your scores, because if you do that, then like your money is wasted. And you don't know how well you did, because they won't even tell you your scores. You're just reporting them, and then you can choose which scores to send later. And yeah, after you do click report, which you should do, you'll be shown the quant and verbal scores. So those will be almost exactly the same as, like in 99% of the cases, they'll be the same as the ones you get. Okay. Then yeah, can you select which scores to send? So on the test day, you can send the one that you just took, or all of the scores that all of the tests that you took up to 5 years ago. Then you can get to select the 4 colleges, like I said, the 4 free score reports. So you should definitely make use of this. But then after the test day, you can send any single date. Now, let's say you do choose this option. The entire test score will be given. So you can't choose one quant from one date and then one verbal from another date. Like you'll have to report the entire test date. Okay. Yeah. Now, for the best time to start preparing, I'd say that the summer before applying is pretty good, because the schedule that I'm given is around 2 months, but you can go for 3 months, like the summer break around like after, let's say after your semester ends, you have 3 months until the next semester. So I would suggest getting it done in the summer itself. And yeah, it leaves a buffer period if you want to retry. And ideally, if you're applying for, let's say, fall 22 admission, then you should try to get it done by September. Like your test date should be August, September at max. But obviously, if you do need retries, there's still some time after that. And yeah, if you are retrying, so for your official score, a diagnostic report will also come. So this is very useful if you want to know like which section took more time and which section you need to improve on. It also tells you how much you spent on every question, so you can see what type of questions you went wrong on. Okay, and yeah, this is also available for the practice test around ETS, I'd say. Okay, what is a good score? So this actually really depends on the program you're applying to. I think most of us will be an engineering program, so they ideally want somewhere like 162 plus on quant, and then they don't really like have much of an emphasis on verbal. So you should try to do really well on quant. Your verbal score is actually just to increase the overall score. Yeah. The main thing about GRE, it's just like one small part of the overall application. Like the GRE, I mean, it's just a score. They also have to look at your SOPs, your letters, and like your overall GPA. So don't stress too much about GRE. Yeah, and do all places require GRE? Actually, this again depends. So you should definitely check if first of all, what you should do is you should research the programs that you want to apply to, and then see if they do want GRE. Because especially with COVID now, a lot of people waive GRE, and I don't know if this will be the case in the future as well. But you should definitely check, and they'll also usually like give you an indication of what a good score for that college is if you check on their website, right? And yeah, as far as I know, European colleges don't really require the GRE, but you should definitely check with their program. And my biggest tip for the exam is there's this YouTube channel called GRE GMAT, which is where I got most of the information I'm telling you guys from. And it's also very useful for like tips, and like the creator also does like walkthroughs of the different questions and stuff. So it's pretty useful. So you should try to use that. Okay, so that's it for my presentation. Like now we can move to the Q&A section. And this is restricted to GRE only, like not for the other tests or like for the application procedures. So if anyone has any questions, I'll take them now.
Rudraj, I think like there are some questions in the chat. Firstly, I think you must go with those.
Okay, let me just check the chat.
Okay.
Oh, nice. Okay. Thank you. When did you write your GRE? Yeah, so I actually wrote it in the summer after my third year. Which like just now. I gave it in August. Like I was preparing all over summer, and I gave it in August. Yeah, what would you suggest would be the right time? So again, I'd suggest like if you can, then you should try to do it maybe in the summer after your third year, because you'll have some time then, and like it's yeah, that's what I did. Did you use any coaching? So I did not use any coaching, but if you are someone that like responds well to coaching, then I would suggest it's useful. What was the hardest part of GRE and your advice to tackling it? Yeah, so I guess the hardest part of GRE would be the verbal section, and also for the verbal section, I'd say the biggest thing again is vocabulary. So what I suggest right now is before you even start preparation, it's like you should always have good vocabulary, so you can start practicing that right now using the app. How do you get such a good score in AWS? Writing actually, there's a very like there's on that YouTube channel I mentioned. He gives a very useful format for the GRE, like for the both the writing sections. So if you watch that, and he also has some walkthrough videos, those are very useful, and like you'll get a really good idea of how to tackle things. So yeah, I definitely suggest watching some videos and sticking to the format that they give, because if you can get the format down, then like you don't really have to worry about how you're writing it. You just have to like think about what you're gonna write. Yeah. Did you get any scholarship? Yeah, so this is like an application question, and I'm actually still applying to colleges, so I can't really answer that pretty well. And no, I haven't actually gotten any scholarship yet. Again, masters with thesis, without thesis. I'm gonna do without thesis, I guess, in some places, and with thesis. Okay, if it's thesis, how would you build a profile? Yeah, again, this is an application question. Profile, it depends actually. You should try to. I can't really answer this question really well because I'm still applying. I haven't gotten in anywhere. But
Rudraj, like 1 second. Like Siddharth, can you write the question in the chat box so that everyone can see, because it's only available to Rudraj as of now. Thank you.
oh right, yeah, it's privately done. Yeah, just copy paste over there, no? Okay. What was your internship about? Was it? Yeah, my internship was at Oracle. It was an industry based one. So yeah, that's it. Research based internship. I can't really answer this question.
Like it's better that if we just go focus on GRE related questions,
Yeah,
and we can focus on these questions later at the end. Maybe that will be better, because we have to cover TOEFL and IELTS also.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll just the rest of our applications. So I'll just move on. Yeah, for online material. So these books you can get them online. So that would be the best material I'd suggest for you. What is the perfect time you think one must give the exam? Yeah, so I'd say the again the if you're applying for fall 22, let's say 21, then yeah, if you're applying for fall 22, then the application deadline's around December or like after December. So the best time to finish this off would be like maybe in September of that year, because then you can focus on the other parts of your application, which will also take a lot of time. Okay. There are no prerequisites for writing the GRE, I guess. Like especially when it comes to quant, I think most of us like the topics for quant are actually they've been covered for most of us, I believe. But obviously, if there are some things that you're struggling with, then you can look in the 5 pound Manhattan book.
Hello.
Yeah. What's the way of planning? What GRE scores about community? Yeah, I think for the top colleges like MIT, Harvard, those ones, I'd say that you should like they ideally want someone with 330 plus, which is a really good score. But then again, if your GRE scores are lower, then you can make up for it in other parts of your application.
Will GRE provide a scholarship for better performer?
GRE won't provide a scholarship, no. Like
No.
the GRE people, they just want to make money off this test, right? So they're not gonna like they don't usually provide a scholarship.
Rudraksh, could we like move ahead with the other session, TOEFL and IELTS, and also guys, we can see the questions for the end of the session so that Rudraksh can cover the next part of it as well. So let's move ahead with the next part, I guess.
Fine, then I'll move on to TOEFL then. Next.
Yeah, we'll take the questions at the end.
Yeah, sure. Okay, fine. TOEFL prep. Okay, so yeah. Again, so for TOEFL, what I did was like I just stuck to these two YouTube channels. TSU is really good. Like they have a lot of practice tests also available on YouTube, and LinguaTrip is also free. So you should try to use these two YouTube channels. And yeah, for the pattern of the test, there's 4 sections. The first one is reading. There'll be around 3 or 4. I think 3 is more common. You'll see maybe 3 passages. Pretty long passages. Okay, so that's why you'll have around 54 minutes, 3 passages. And there'll be 10 questions for each passage. Now, the good thing about this test is that like the questions will all be in order. So like if the first question refers to, let's say, this first paragraph of the thing, then the second question will be after that. Like you won't have to go behind. So usually what I would suggest for this one is that you gotta answer the questions as you're reading it. So you read the paragraph and then you see if you can answer the first question with that information. If you can't, then you read the second one and you just keep moving like that. Yeah, try to finish in 15. Like with 50 minutes, you have around 18 minutes for a section. You should try to finish in 15 minutes so that you can. Now in this section, you can go front and back. So I suggest using that to review all your answers at the end. Yeah. Almost all of the questions are of equal value, except at the end of the thing, there might be a question that's for maybe 2 marks or 3 marks. But there'll always be 10 for each passage. Okay. Now, second is listening. So for listening, they'll make you listen to an audio, and then you have to answer around 6 questions right at the end, 6 or 5 questions. Now, the thing is, you can only hear the audio once. And before speaking, they'll give you a bit of a warning, but you should try to start focusing like when the audio starts. Then yeah, when you're answering the questions, it's completely sequential. Like you can't go back to a question you've already answered. And after you've heard the audio, all 6 questions will come in an order. So you can't go back. You have to follow the exact thing that they present to you. Now, the biggest thing in listening is you should take notes of whatever's important. They'll provide you a pen and paper and try to note down all the important things that they say. So you don't have to write down everything, like very fine details about what's being said, but you should try to take down the main ideas. And if multiple people are speaking, you should try to note down what one person's view is compared to someone else. And yeah, the biggest thing, like biggest tip for this one is when they start speaking slowly, it means that something important is going to be said. So at that point, you should note down like more about what's said. Okay. Then the third one is speaking. So in TOEFL, they'll give you a prompt, or they'll make, yeah. So the first step is like give you a prompt on like some small topic, like let's say, do you like traveling or something like that. You just have to speak for 30 seconds about it. Okay. And the thing is, you have to speak into a mic, and your answer will be recorded and it'll be sent to ETS for grading. And you only get 1 attempt at this, so like you should be really confident with speaking well. Yeah. Then for the next one is they'll make you listen to some audio, and then based on that, you have to speak something else. It's they have a variety of questions, and I can't really explain them all well without examples and stuff. So you should definitely check out TSC Prep. Like they have a lot of good examples for these kind of questions. And yeah, your speech will be graded by a computer and like as well as someone, like a person. Okay. Right. Then the fourth section is writing, and this is actually typing. But you should try to stick to a format that you know. And then the editor again has no spell check or anything, so you should try to like leave some time for checking your punctuation and stuff. So this integrated task is actually, again, you have to listen to something, then you have to read something, and then based on those two, there'll be differing viewpoints. So you have to summarize the key differences between those two. Then the second type is an independent task, which is again like creative writing, like based on some opinion of yours. Yeah. Now, again, while practicing, I'd suggest that you turn off your spell checker and grammar checker, and yeah, stick to the typing while timing while you're practicing, because again, like the main issue is that you might start going over the time, which would like leave less time for you to review, or you might even get cut off after 30 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Now for scoring, there's you get a score out of 30 in each section for a total of 120. Now, yeah, like I said, for writing and speaking, one human and a software grades it. Now for the pricing, it's a bit less than the GRE. So this is 13,600 rupees for the test. And then again, to send, you still need to pay some more money after the test. So for each one that you send it to, it'll be around 1,500 rupees. But you can send four free score reports. Now I actually messed up. I didn't use this because I thought like it would be after the test they'd give you the option, but it's actually before 10 p.m. the night before the exam. So make sure you do that before the exam. Okay, now material and schedule. So this is the official guide to the TOEFL. So this is pretty useful for like knowing what kind of questions and stuff. But this YouTube channel, Target Test Prep, and like even on their website, is actually better than reading this gigantic textbook. Like I would definitely suggest just using this to get a feel of the test. And they also offer a lot of like different practice tests and different strategies to solve the questions. But more than the strategies, the most important thing is the practice tests that they give you. Now on the TOEFL site, there's actually a free practice test, which is like a very, very basic version of the test. Like it's not even a complete test, but it gets you like familiarized with the format that the test is going to be on. So you should definitely try to do this. It's available on the ETS official site. Then again, they give you some practice tests. So for this one, reading is very useful. Listening is okay, because the thing is, they don't give you the audio transcription. They just give you like, they don't give you the audio. They only give you the transcript of the audio. So I would suggest that for like these practice tests aren't as useful as Target Test Prep, because on their YouTube channel, these guys actually speak out the transcript to you, which is much more useful. And if you really want, then you can try to like, if you want to spend $45, like it is useful if you want to try to increase your score, but it is $45. So I would like, it's up to you. You can get the official practice test. There's I think 30 official practice tests available on the website, and each one costs $45. Okay. Yeah. And for the schedule, I actually, since I'm like a native English speaker, I spent around 2 weeks for this. But obviously, if you're not someone who's very like accustomed to English, you would spend longer and do more practice tests and like try to practice speaking more. Yeah. FAQs. Okay. Yeah, again, so the test is again on the computer, and for COVID, they also had an at-home version. But again, I would suggest that you go for the computer version at the test center. Same thing, you bring an ID card, passport or maybe Aadhaar card, and the confirmation, and that's it. Again, you can't bring anything into the computer room, including water. So how often is the test offered? So it's offered almost every day of the year, but the limit is that it's a bit less. Like you can take it every 3 days, basically. But the thing is, you won't get your official score until 6 days. So I would suggest waiting for your official score to come, then trying to reattempt. Now, the bad thing about this is it's only valid for 2 years. Like these scores are only valid for 2 years. So I would suggest the best time to start preparing is again the summer before applying. Is the same thing. Yeah. When do you receive scores? Yeah. So again, like I said, you get the official score report after 6 days. And again, you'll be given an option to cancel or report your scores. So again, I would say that you should not cancel your scores. You should always report them. And then after you click report, you will be shown reading and listening immediately, because those are MCQ type of questions. Right. And the good thing about this is you can mix and match scores from different test dates to get your my best score. This is a very useful feature that they've given. So you can see that this person has managed to get to 90 because of the like combined value of these 3 test scores. The only issue with this is that test date 1 should be no longer than 2 years before when you're applying, because all of the scores are only valid for 2 years. Okay, what is a good score? So I would say for this, most colleges have around cutoffs of 90 and stuff, but they also have specific cutoffs. Like they'll say maybe that you need 24 in speaking or something like that. Or like, yeah, 26 in listening. I saw that also in one place. So I'd say that 100 plus is safe. Like if you have 100 plus, then you don't have to worry. Again, but although this may like vary with program, and you should definitely check that first. And do all places require TOEFL? So TOEFL for international students is mostly required, but for NIT Warangal transcripts, it does mention at the back that the medium of instruction was English. So most places, if you like send an email and you ask them that my transcript says this, do I still have to give TOEFL? Some places might say that, yeah, you don't need to give it, you're fine. So I would suggest doing that and like checking with their target programs if you do. And now, again, the biggest tip for this is the TST Prep YouTube channel, which is very useful. And I think that's it for TOEFL. The Q&A, you said that we'll do after the IELTS one, so we can skip this for now. So I'll hand it over to Karthik. Okay.
Yeah. 1 second. Ritesh, can you turn off your screen sharing?
Yeah, got it.
One second.
And guys, I just want to add that stay patient till the end of the meeting to get your Q&As answered, because we also have IELTS webinar coming up, and then both of them answer at once of all the questions you have.
So yeah, am I audible first? And is the
Sure.
screen visible?
And yeah.
Okay. So yeah, welcome to the IELTS session for today. And as we had discussed, another English exam named TOEFL. So there's much similar to that, but there are some there is some division between these two things. That's why they're different. So yeah, what exactly IELTS is? IELTS is full form is International English Language Testing System, and it is jointly managed by British Council, IDP, and Cambridge. And if you want to give, or if you want to book a slot, then you have either two options. 1 second. You have either two options, either British Council India or IDP India. So you can choose any one of them. These are the websites, you can refer it later. And then the one major difference between TOEFL and IELTS that I can tell you right now is the speaking section. The speaking section is usually in person in IELTS, whereas in TOEFL it's like you are speaking to the computer. And also IELTS speaking may or may not be on the same date as the other sections of the test. So yeah, that's the only difference between IELTS and TOEFL, the major difference. And coming to the minor difference, I'll tell you in the later slides. And different types of IELTS exam, there are two types, academic and general training. The ones who are applying to universities abroad and all the stuff should give academic test. And the ones who are looking for PR or some other work immigration kind of things, then they have to give the general training test. Both of them differ in reading and writing sections only, and grading is a bit different for both of them. And exam pattern. So the exam pattern consists of 4 sections: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. As I told you, speaking may or may not be on the same day as when the other 3 tests are there. But the other 3 tests are in the order of listening, reading, and writing. It's not like you can attempt any one of them first. So coming to the listening section, there are 4 sections, 40 questions, and about 30 to 35 minutes for if you're taking the computer-based exam, and about 40 minutes if you're taking the paper-based exam. So in paper-based exam, what you have is like you listen to the audio once, and then you have to transfer your answers to the answer sheet that they will provide you. And for that, you're getting extra 10 minutes. But this leeway is not provided for the computer-based students. They only get 1 to 2 minutes in the end to check your answers, overall answers. So it's always recommended for you not to write notes. You can directly write your answers in the fill in the blanks with some of the MCQ type options in the computer based, or you can just mark them on the question paper that you receive on the paper based. And I will mostly focusing on the computer based, but yeah, I will be covering a bit of here and there about the paper based as well. So difficulty usually increases with the sections. First section be the easiest one, and fourth section being a bit tough one. And also there's this one particular thing: recording will only be played once, so you have to hear and you have to listen properly and try to answer the questions simultaneously. And also it's not recommended to make notes, because there are it's not like you have to understand something and then you have to answer. It's like direct question and answer type questions. I'll show you one sample in the end. And question types. So there can be around 5 to 6 question types. The major being the MCQs, matching type questions, plan, map, or diagram. They will be like fill in the blanks. There will be like something marked on location 1, location 2. So what are those locations? Like maybe that may be a auditorium, or that may be the main building of our campus, something like that. And form note completion, this is usually covered in the first section. The sample of that is given here. And sentence completion type questions. So in these types of questions, the only place where you have to look for grammar is sentence completion question, because the sentence should sound meaningful. But if in the case of form note type completion, you need not worry that great about grammar, because as it's mentioned, it's a note making thing, not the sentence equivalence thing. So you have to make sure, like if the answer is breaks were done last year, if the speaker is saying breaks were done last year, then you may just write breaks done last year or something like breaks last year. It depends on the question how they are asking. So you have to be a bit careful. You need not worry on grammar that much. And coming to the question that, as I told you, sample question, like this is a question type, like in the part where they usually ask like a questions like this. So you have to be very specific about this. No more than 3 words and or a number. So it can be 3 words plus number, or just a number, or less than 2 words and a number, or something like that. But you should not cross this limit, or else that you may lose a point. And yeah, these you have to read these very carefully. And before you like go through every section, just make sure that you read all the questions. Like before starting the recording, they usually give around 30 seconds to look out of the 5 questions. Here they are looking at 5 questions. Sometimes it can be 10 questions, sometimes it can be 2 or 3 questions as well. And there are, yeah, multiple choice questions include multiple answer type questions also. That's what I forgot to mention here. And sections, as I told you, it consists of 4 sections. First section is a conversation between 2 speakers. Like it's usually for form filling or some kind of registration thing, maybe registration forms for this XYZ club, or registering a complaint against something, or like buying a new car or something like that. So it's very easy section. It's just that answer that question. Like maybe they will be asking what's the name and the phone number, age, what specific problem, or something like that. It's a very easy section, and I recommend you that you should get full on this section. Out of 10, you should score 10. And task types also given here, and this is actually an old version. The task types are usually changing nowadays because of the online version, and they're like more robust. But the overall point being is like it's the level of grading is simple, say similar, and it's not that tough to score in listening. And the only place where you have to focus more on is this 4th section, because you'll be having only 30 seconds to like go through your what we say all the 10 questions. So okay, usually what's the division is like, it's usually first 5 questions they will give you 30 seconds to read through the questions, and 6 to 10 they will give you another 30 seconds, and then it usually decreases with the sections, and the last section is usually 30 seconds for the whole 10 questions. And you have to keep a note about all those 10 questions when you're listening to the recording. So it's usually a monologue, and academic setting, someone giving a lecture about something. So you have to be very precise on the last question. This is where people usually lose marks. And here, 3rd section is also important if there are more than 3 speakers, 3 or 4 speakers, because you have to identify which person is speaking what, so that you can claim that, yeah, X person had claimed that this is good or this is bad. You have to be very careful about who is speaking what, and you have to like be a bit conscious over there. If it's 2 speakers, then no need to worry. It's like simple. But if there are 3 or 4, then you have to like make sure that you know which speaker is speaking what. And at that time, you can just make notes. You can make notes. It's not that you cannot make notes, but it's always recommended not to make notes, because you may skip some of the important topics while they were speaking. And some of the simple tips that I can give you is like it's case insensitive. So you can write all your answers in the capital letters whenever they're asking the fill in the blank types of question. Why capital letters? Because if the answer is Thursday and you know the T of Thursday is capital, so if in the answer sheet if you have written small t, then the answer won't be counted and it will be like marked incorrectly. So it's better to use capital letters for each and every answer. And write only what you listen. Like don't write extra things or something extra from your end. And be very specific, or else you will lose a point. And also the prepositions, like the museum or a park or something like that. So you have to be very specific. And suppose like coming back on time, something like though the preposition is a bit important here. And this is same for the reading session as well. So I will just extensively discuss about listening, and I will copy forward for the reading section. And also this is one of the important things in the listening. You have to be very specific about which is plural. So something like you have to care for that extra s that you're like in the end. That will make a huge difference. If you're not writing that, then it's gonna like a mark incorrectly. And also there's one tip, that subject word agreement, like that's, you have the sentence in front of you, so you can guess that which the answer is going to be plural or singular. And also you have to be very specific with respect to words like work, experience. These all are like plural, or like not plural, like these are the specific words that are usually given. And it's not works and it's not experiences, it's only experience and work. So this is one kind of question that they usually ask. And keep your mind very calm and be very attentive, because you will be having a second chance to hear the recording and practice. And I'll tell you some resources for practice in the end. And coming to reading, this section is different for general and this general and academic. I'll be discussing only academic here. You'll be having 3 very long passages, about 900 words each, 900 to 1000 words each. So it's very exhaustive, to be honest. And you'll be having 40 questions, same as listening, and 1 hour duration. Grading is also done based on the number of correct answers that I'll show you what they were in the end. And you can attempt in any order, like you can take the passage 3 first, passage 1 first, or passage 2 first. It depends upon you. And the time management is a key role here, because it's not that they are expecting you to read through the whole paragraphs, understand, and then only answer. You can like just skim through the passages, and then you can continue with your, what we say, answering the questions. So the question types are given as such. There are around 14 question types that they get usually asked. Like it can be like distributed among all the passages, but they mostly will be touching at least 10 of these. So be very sure that you have done a practice of each and every type of question by giving your actual exam. And out of this all, this is the one which is very, very important for reading point of view. True, false, not given, yes, no, not given. So you have to be very specific, and you have to understand the paragraph, whichever paragraph the question is about, very properly. Because if the question is telling more about like, yeah, this thing happened, but this thing did not happen. So answer is false only when it is completely opposite to the author's opinion. And not given is like that information is not given in the passage. So you have to be very specific about these 3 answer type questions. So these 2 question types. True, false, not given, or yes, no, not given. So it's both are almost the same, but there's a slight difference. True, false, not given is more of a factual based, whereas yes, no, not given is more of author based, author's opinion or something like that. So it will come by practice only, and I will recommend some of the practice resources in the end. And sections, 40 questions are usually divided into 3 sections in the form of 13, 13, 14, or 13, 14, 13, depends upon the, what we say, passages. And usually it is usually said that the 14 questions one passage is a difficult one of the all, but it's not authentic, or it's not what we say, it's not the thing that IELTS is gonna like tell you. You have to like it's upon you that whichever question you want to like whichever question you want to attempt first, you can attempt it that. And the source of all these are usually this published documents or any source. It can be any history related things, arts, history, commerce, or even science also. So if you're lucky enough to get science related topics, then you're good, or else you'll be finding it very boring and very exhaustive. And read and answer according to question types. As I told you, these question types have their own specifications, that, as I told you about true, false, not given, or something else. So you have to be very specific about that. And some of the tips is like, it's also case insensitive. You can answer in all capital letters. And also don't try to read every paragraph and try to understand them. You can just skim through it. And don't give more than 7 minutes to skim through one passage, 7 to 8 minutes, or max to max 10 minutes. Because if you're spending more than 10 minutes for just reading the passage and not doing the questions, then it's not gonna sound good. And also some people suggest that go through the questions first and then answer it from the, what we said, answer it from the paragraphs where the question is about. So it's also not advisable to use this trick, because it's not true for every case, especially for the true false not given, where you have to understand that paragraph. So it's not like that copy pasting from the passages and reporting answers. Sometimes it does not work, but sometimes it may work. And yeah, try to finish each section in 16 to 17 minutes. Don't give more than that, and you have a lot of time in the end to just review your answers. And don't waste a lot of time on single question. You can do it in the end. So as I told you, it's not sequential. You can do in any order. And grading table, as I told you, it's general is different and academic is different. So for reading and listening, if you are getting 39, 40, then that score will be 9. And similarly, 8.5, 8, 7.5, 7. It's in a decreasing out of 0.5. So you can just make a note of this. And yeah, coming to the writing section, it is one of the most important section in IELTS, to be honest. And this is the one place where people find most difficult about the IELTS part. And yeah, so coming to the writing task, so it is like there are 2 tasks. You'll be having 1 hour, and you can attempt in any order. But I will recommend you to do task 1 first, and then go for task 2. And the time management is very important here because you have to like collect your thought process and like provide the answers in a very cohesive manner. If the answer is not cohesive, then you are going to lose points. So I'll tell about this in the later slides. Writing task 1. The word limit is minimum 150 words. So you have to give minimum 150 words for the writing task 1. If it's less than that, then you're gonna lose marks. And writing task 1 is a 1/3 of the overall writing score. So writing task 1 is also evaluated out of 9. Writing task 2 also is also evaluated about 9. So for the overall writing score, it's suppose you are getting 6 in writing task 1 and suppose 9 in writing task 2. So 6 by 3, 2, and 9 by 3, 3. So 3. 6 by 3 is 2. 1 second. Yeah, it's correct. So 6 by 3 is 2, and 9 by 3 is 3, 3 into 2, 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. So you're getting 8 band overall. So like this, that is the score is usually evaluated for writing task, and it's usually recommended not to spend more time in the writing task for more than 20 minutes because writing task 2 is going to take a lot of time, and this is one of the important sections in the whole IELTS exam paper. And yeah, writing task 1 question types, it can be a bar chart or pie chart type questions, table type questions, process description, or something like prediction type. Now the population is like suppose 7 billion, and there's a table giving that maybe by 2050 it may reach up to 10 billion, something like that. So you have to describe your answer in what you say more cohesive manner. I will discuss about that. And the map type question is very important. Map and process. Process is usually simple for map. Describing a map is a usual like it requires practice, to be honest. And coming to the writing task 1 sample, this is a usual sample question. I took it from one of the Google images, and this is a line graph that you have to describe this line graph in 150 words. And the structure I will tell you in the upcoming slide. So this is the recommended structure. So try to introduce this what you say graph in 1 or 2 lines in the introduction, and about 25 to 30 words. Overview. This is a very important what we say part of the writing task 1 response, wherein you'll be writing the overview. Like you have to just mention which is the thing that what is happening overall. So you can just see that these two are decreasing after this limit and this is increasing after this limit. So it depends how you are writing this overview, because this is one of the key parameters that usually the graders usually test upon. And body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2 describing about each of the events that you're written in overview. Maybe you have written in overview that France had a GDP growth of about 2.8%, whereas UK and Germany had a decline of 2.5%. So this can be the overview statement, and in the body paragraph 1, you can discover France. Body paragraph 2, you can discover about what we say UK and Germany, and also if you're using this compound sentences, complex sentences, and comparison type of sentences, that are usually the sentences which have a more weightage and more points. So they usually go for compound sentences, complex sentences, and if you're able to like answer it in a specific manner by not giving much detailed information in a very concise manner and within the limit of 150 words, not within the limit, like just above 150 words, then it's perfect. I recommend, it's not I recommend, I usually recommend you to write about 170 to 180 words, or around 160 to 180 words for writing task 1. And conclusion is not necessary, you can write if you want, but overview should be very important. You should focus more on this part. Coming to writing task 2, it's more of an issue essay. Like you can compare this with the issue essay of the GRE as told by Rudraksh, and like it's a bit different because you are testing on different parameters. These are the usual 5, like popular 5 questions that you usually get in as writing task 2. I'll show one sample here. So this is one of the samples that I found on Google Images, and And this is how you usually get your writing task too. And you have to write about like it's a question of agree or disagree. So to what extent you agree, these all things you have to be very specific. And the recommended section I will recommend is like you can use this line as an introduction, but don't copy this, paraphrase this. Yeah, I will tell the resources in the end, and at that time I will like specify these things. Introduction, your take on the question, like how much do you agree or how much do you disagree with this, your point of view. This is the most important part of the writing task too. And the explanation of these in body paragraph 1 and 2 respectively, and the conclusion. These are the important parameters that you have been tested upon, and you have to make sure that your take is reflected on body paragraph 1 and 2 and also in the conclusion. So it usually requires time because you have to gather your thought processes and like shoot it on the answer sheet. And grading evaluation, it's the official IELTS thing that they have published on the website. What's the 9 band, what's the 8 band grading criteria, 7 band and 6 band. So the major criteria that you have been looking up, that they are judging you upon is task achievement or task response, cohesion, coherence and cohesion, lexical resources, and grammatical range. Lexical resource means vocabulary, grammatical range and accuracy. So all these are 25% weightage. And yeah, as I told you, writing task 1 is also evaluated out of 9 and 2 is also evaluated out of 9. So these are the 4 parameters that you have been tested upon, and these are the usual, like uh, scores of band 9 or band 8 type of people. And this is one of the important parameters in their overall IELTS exam. And yeah, one more thing I just wanted to mention, I will mention it later. The very first tip that I want to give you is don't use any flowery language in task 1 because it's very academic task, and it's better to just like be very specific and just be limited to what the image is going to tell you, like bar chart or pie chart or some map or some process kind of thing. And also follow the structure and focus more on grammar and cohesion. So like this is the one place where usually people may mistake. People usually start with future tense, sorry, or past tense, and they move to past perfect or present perfect, which is usually like these are the minor errors that the IELTS writing test people are looking for. And they are not looking for your content. Like to be honest, your content is not that thing, especially for writing task 2. It's complete upon your perception. By looking for your perception, they're not either judging you whether your perception is correct or not academically or technically. So don't worry about that. They're just looking for your English language. And make sure you respond to task properly, because if you're not responding to the task, like to what extent type of questions, then you're going to lose your mark. And speaking, the last section, it usually consists of 3 parts. 12, it lasts for the whole 3 parts last for 12 to 15 minutes, and the grading criteria will be told later. And it's in person speaking as compared to like it may be virtual. It depends upon the test center that you have, and because of this COVID situations, some other test centers have shifted to virtual. Virtual doesn't mean that you have to give the exam from home. You have to go to the test center. It's a separate room, and you'll be having a laptop or computer over there where they'll be like giving you what we say, like they will be evaluating you. And excuse me, there are 3 parts as I told you. Part 1 is like 2 to 3 minutes, general introductory questions, getting to know type of questions, and 2 to 3 question types. As I mean, from this I mean like they may ask you what's your hobby or something like where do you live, do you work or do you study or something like that. So they usually cover up these parts to get to know you better. And you have to be fluent from the very beginning, because if you stutter in between or if you use these kind of words or this kind of what we say pauses, then it's not going to sound good. And second part is cue card question. This is one of the important part in your speaking test. Cue card question, you'll be getting a cue card. Okay, yeah, you'll be getting a cue card. You'll be having 1 minute to prepare on it and 2 minutes to speak on the topic. And the common topics and all will be discussed in the resources section. And part 3 is the extensive discussion on the cue card topic. Like if you have got a cue card topic about describe foreign language that you have learned recently. So the question may be like, why do you think it's necessary for people to learn a new foreign language or something related to that? So it's like testing you upon what you have spoken, and maybe some related questions to your cue card. And it's usually lasts for about 5 to 6 minutes. And you have to elaborate your answer giving some examples. You can give your own example, you can make up your own example at that point. And grading criteria, as you can see, The 4 parameters that they are testing is about, it's on fluency and coherence, the lexical resources, grammatical accuracy, and pronunciation. So out of all this, be very fluent. This is one thing that you have in your control, and grammatical range, because you have to be very specific. You can pause for a minute or two. No, sorry, pause for a second or two, but don't delay the pause. And yeah, lexical resources do matter, but it's not the only deciding factor that is going to give you your, what we say, oral brand. And coming to speaking tips, for the part one, as I told you, it's more of an introductory type of question. So don't give any detailings about the question types. You can just mention, suppose if they have asked you, do you work or do you study? So you can just mention that I'm currently studying and I'm in my final year of chemical engineering or something like that. So be very fluent. Don't pause for a long time. You can like pause for a second and then you can continue. Like you can arrange the thought processes and combine them in logical sequence and uh, grammatical errors and all those things. You can like take a control on it while you're thinking for the topic, especially the Q card topic. And use fillers and some statements like, yeah, that's an interesting question. Please give me a minute to respond. You can like answer in this kind of sense also, because this usually creates an impression that you are not pausing for your because of the lack of English, but you're pausing because of the thinking. So this is a good sign. And practice. That's the only thing that I can tell you here, because practice is a thing that usually makes you somewhat with a 7 band score or an 8 band score or 9 band score. So coming to the IELTS grading, this is the overall thing. So if you're getting a writing of 6, speaking 5.5, 7 in reading, and 6.5 in listening. So the total is about 25. 25 divided by 4 is 6.25. So this 6.25 is now rounded out to 6.5. So this is how it is usually rounded out to nearest 0.5. And if you're getting 1.125, then it's lowered down. And if you're getting more than that, 0.75, then it's usually rounded up to 8. So this is the thing that IELTS usually uses for grading. And the specific questions that were in the document sheet, what is the cost of exam? It's approximately 14,000 INR. And score validity is 2 years from your listening, reading, and writing date. Whenever you're booking your test slot, you'll be booking your listening, reading, and writing date. And coming to the speaking portion can be within that week. Suppose if you have kept your exam on Sunday, so it can range from any day from Monday to Sunday of that week. And like -5 days and +1 day, you can use this formula also. TRF means test report form, which you have submitted to universities, and it's usually free for first 5 universities. You can like give your 5 universities when you're registering for your exam, or you can give it later also. They don't charge usually. And later, after this 5 universities, they charge you approximately 250 rupees for your each university organization that you want to send for. And when do you receive your scores? It's usually 3 to 5 days if you're giving computer-based exam, or 2 weeks or more than that for the paper-based exam. And what's a safe score scale? So I would recommend that 7, overall 7, and with each section 6.5. If you have this, then you are eligible to almost every place out there in the globe. And resources, as I told you, this is a official book that you get after you book your slot, and like you'll be receiving this with on a post. Like if you have booked your slot today, then within 1 or 2 days you'll be receiving a book like this as a post, and it's the latest one, IELTS 15 academic. I received IELTS 13 and 14 also, so go with the recent ones. And as like if you want to find these books online, you can find it like as Rudra told, like you just have to like find these resources just as you find your textbooks and all the stuffs. And yeah, these are the common websites. For the listening and reading part, I really recommend you to go through this. This is IELTSonlinetest.com, and this is a free resource. You can use this for your what is the IELTS exam. And before you start with your IELTS preparation, I really suggest you to give a diagnostic exam on this website. You can choose any of one of the what we say exam. I'll give a specific link of which exam you can go for. And IELTS.com is blogged by one of the UK citizen. I don't remember her name, but it's one of the very famous blog for IELTS exam. And also this examword.com. Examword.com is a source where you can find your recent questions. Like as I told you, this common this QCAR questions. So all the recent QCAR questions you can find on this website. and you may like get a similar quicker for yourself also. And the YouTube channel for especially for speaking session, this is the YouTube channel aehelp.com or not .com, aehelp, wherein the speaker is Adrian and he's what we say, he's the IELTS what we say instructor and also what we say examiner as well. So you have to be like it's very good if you go to this because he covers every band, band 9, band 8, band 7, and band 6 as well. So you can get to know which band you are like what you say which band you are at currently and where to improve. He also gives some tips and all the stuffs also. I really recommend his channel for speaking. You can go through this website for sections and this section for the recent exams, recent questions and practice related to recent questions. IELTS onlinetest.com, you can use this for listening and reading initially for as a diagnostic test, but for reading, I really recommend you to follow the official books because those are the ones authenticated and those are the ones that will give you the real essence of the exam, especially for reading. And listening also, both are almost similar, but still I will recommend you to give the original official guides from the official guides, and you'll be getting around 4 practice tests in each guide. So yeah, any questions? And yeah, now you can ask any questions related to GRE, TOEFL, or IELTS, any one of these. You can just type on a chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, like everyone who having doubts regarding GRE, TOEFL, and ICE can ask now. Like they're open for questions now. I think there's already some questions, Rudrans and Vivek, I think, in the chat box. So maybe you can go through them first. Or else if anybody unmutes themselves, then go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just checking the chat.
Okay. Even some people raise their hands actually.
Okay, yeah, you can type the message here because I was not able to see when I was presenting. TOEFL, like as a research pointed out that some of the universities, if your first language, if your university language is English, then it's usually like waived off, but it's very rare. Like, I did not find any Indian universities to be waived off that easily. You have to be give a huge explanation or something like that to like convince those speakers, so admission committees. How do you practice speaking and writing? So speaking, especially as I told you that website, the what we say the website that I pointed out right now, the YouTube channel, sorry. So from there, I usually took some of the what we say cue cards I practiced on my own. I practiced from using his cue cards as well, and I evaluated based on what we say, the what you say, like what the parameters that they are looking for, and uh, one second. And speaking part, luckily I had one of my friend who had given the exam recently, and I asked him if he can like evaluate me on the basis of the actual real exam or something like that. So that was one of the boosts that I got. And it's like even if you don't have any friends or someone who can like help you in this respect, you can just go to the YouTube channel. He explains in a very better fashion and you can get a lot of information from that and accordingly you can prepare. And best name give a writing section, as I told you, yeah. One thing I forgot about writing is like, as I told you, from this official resources also, there are some band 9 scores report or band 8 or something like that. So you can refer to them for the specific topic, and also this exam, like most of the stuff you can get on internet as well. So it's that you have to search for them. I have a problem in writing, therefore, where can I practice apart from the resources you mentioned? Writing part, especially if you are talking about writing task 2, so there are some resources, other resources as well. You can just Google them and not all, like, don't think that all the resources are authentic unless and until it's from the Cambridge site. And practice like first if you feel that your scores are like constantly at the same level, then you just refer to some band 9 scores or band 8 scores to get a better idea about where should I focus and what's the difference between your writing and their writing and what else they have focused on. So that will give you best what we say indication about where you're lacking. And what are your band scores? Okay. My band scores at North. Yeah, I'll answer one by one. Best time to give your IELTS or TOEFL, it's the same day. like, since it's valid for 2 years only, so if you're looking for job of like job for 2 years and then giving, so just give your exam when you think that you're prepared enough. So suppose if you want to go to your university directly after your masters, say directly after bachelor's, then I really recommend you to give these exams by September, as Rudraj pointed out. And my band scores are like I got 9 in listening, 8.5 in reading, 6.5 in writing, and 7.5 in what you say, speaking. So I did not concentrate much on writing, I know, but the resources that I found, like I gave these the same resources to one of my friend, and he got 8 in writing. So it depends upon how you're practicing and all the stuff, especially from IELTS point of view. And are North American universities okay with IELTS? Yeah, they are definitely okay with IELTS, and I'll come to that point in a bit later. I have problem in that, yeah. Which test is widely accepted at colleges around across the world? So yeah, I'll answer this in a minute. And would you mind if I can go to website for practicing writing and getting good? Okay, Rudraj, can you take up this question? It's about TOEFL.
Yeah, sure. I mean, okay, first of all, I'd like to clarify. So for the word limit for writing, in TOEFL, it's like you should try to write 250 words in the first one. So 250 words in 20 minutes and 350 words for the second one. So that's 350 in 30 minutes. So like the key thing is you should be able to type fast. And like as you're typing fast, you should like type it effectively. So I think for getting it scored based on writing, um, I don't know if there's any like softwares available that like match what ETS uses, but you can try to assess like your own performance also. So like I said, you should try to so first of all, on your editor, you turn off spell check and you turn off grammar check. Then you see a prompt and you try to answer that in the exact time given. So exactly 20 minutes or exactly 30 minutes. So then after that, you turn on your spell check again and then you see how many mistakes you made, because like they definitely check for spelling and grammar errors. So after that, you should read it properly, or maybe get someone else to read it and assess how well you did. Like, there's no available resources that exactly mark your thing for writing. Yeah. Okay. Which websites we follow from the top? I think you can just Google this. Like, some US news is there. You can get that. Show you materials. Yeah, for the materials, I don't think we can actually exactly share where we got them, but like, see, you can get them wherever you get the textbooks. I'm sure some of them are also available for free online. Like you should try. Like I think at least one of the textbooks is available for free online, but I'm not exactly sure. You can check on Google. Yeah. How to practice IELTS? Yeah, there's an IELTS question. You can take that.
So how to practice listening and reading? So as I told you, give the diagnostics test right now, and based on the score that you're getting, you can improve on the sections that as online test also gives about where did you make a mistake and what's the exact answer that they were looking for. And so coming to the reading portion, like if you're constantly getting a score of 7 or 7.5 and you want to improve up to 9, so what I really can suggest you is like if you have time to before your exam, at least approximately 2 weeks, then in that week, in that 2 weeks duration, you can just go through this specific questions like true, false, not given, or yes, no, not given type of questions, and make sure that you like read a lot of stuff so that your reading speed usually increases. I usually have a habit of reading research papers, so that's how I usually grasp the speed of like reading the material so quickly. And don't waste a lot of time in reading the question. Sorry, reading the passages. It's going to be very long. It's approximately 900 to 1,000 words. So you really need to be like very concise about how you read, and also like don't read and understand everything. You can just skim through it. And um, listening, from coming to listening, it completely depends upon you. And like it's like most of the listening types are direct answer type questions. So. It's like for listening, it's really depends upon the preposition. I feel that this you may be making a mistake in the preposition one, or somewhere some question where the answer is a bit tricky or something like that. So it's just a practice test for the listening, but for the reading, if you think that you are not able to get this type of question like true, false, not given, or some other type of question, you can practice those questions independently and then give another test. And one more thing I just want to recommend is that for reading, especially, don't trust or don't bank on some online resources apart from Cambridge official resource, because Cambridge official resource will give you an exact idea about how the actual exam is gonna be. And there were another two other questions also. Had you thought about doing masters from here, or how did you make? It completely depends. It's very subjective question and it depends on person to person. For me, I was like very specific about going to masters before I joined my bachelor's. So yeah, and I'm in your final year and planning to master's 2 years from now. Can you suggest something for me? Should I be very careful in this gap? What I can really suggest you is like give your GRE as soon as you graduate, and because like after you gradually you have 2 to 3 months of time, right? May to July or something like that before you join the corporation. So that time I feel that you should really focus on GRE and give away your GRE, and then you have your time. Like it depends upon you when you want to like go for abroad in universities, and you can accordingly prepare for TOEFL and IELTS. That does not require a much extensive preparation as GRE requires. And
1 second.
yeah.
Depending on your work schedule, you might or you might not have enough time to prepare for GRE, because like according to my schedule that I follow, there was like maybe 1 or 2 hours a day, or like even on the days that I was doing practice tests, it's like 4 hours a day. So you might not have that much freedom when you do start working. So like Vivek said, you should ideally try to finish it off maybe before you join. But even if you can't do that, then you just have to find time in your schedule to study properly. Like just
Yeah.
make a schedule for yourself, and then make sure that you follow that schedule. That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah. Now coming to the common question that everyone is asking, how much time it does it take for preparation? It completely depends upon you. See, I know one of my friend who did not even touch the materials for IELTS and all, and he got a 9 band overall 9 band in his what we say, uh, okay, well, in his IELTS exam, academic exam, and GRE. Usually, people need a bit of time. It's not guaranteed that without any preparation you will get a good score. Usually, GRE needs a bit of preparation, and yeah, as Rudraksh is pointing out, it depends upon your standard at present. So give the diagnostic test, but don't bank on them, and you get an approximate idea about what you say. You get an approximate idea about the how much you're scoring and where you're lacking, and based on that, you can manage your like start preparing accordingly. So it's going to be different for everyone, and usually the usual time period that usually people follow is 2 month, 2 month preparation, and then after that they usually give the GRE. But it completely depends on the person. It may take even 5 months or 6 months also. So yeah, like it depends on the person how you are managing your time slots and how you're managing your other stuff like ads or something like that.
To
And
assess, just one
yeah.
second. So to assess where you're at, I would suggest taking a diagnostic test first, or GRE at least,
Yeah.
so that you see where you need to practice and how much you need to prepare. Okay, sorry, go on.
Uh,
Giving what trials the TOEFL difficulty.
yeah, I'm like seeing that. See, this was the same question that I was started upon approximately 2 months ago when I was like deciding which one to give, and in the end, I chose IELTS. Comparing the difficulty, IELTS is a bit on the easier side, but it's not like if you want a rating, then TOEFL maybe 7 or and IELTS maybe 6.5 out of 10. Suppose something like that. It's very similar, but people usually feel IELTS is a bit simpler. And one more thing, one more worry about TOEFL is like during this COVID time, not many people are giving TOEFL. But if you're giving your TOEFL yeah, especially TOEFL on a regular time, then you have a lot of disturbance around you whenever you're speaking or something like that. So you have got to be very careful. You have to be adjusted in a background where you continuously hear the noises around you. And also, don't worry, your microphone is going to catch your voice only, but you have to be very concentrated. Like you need to be conscious about what you are going to answer or something like that. That's one of the issue what people writing TOEFL usually tell me. And coming
Yeah,
to IELTS, and IELTS is in person or at max virtual 1-to-1 only. It's not like you have to give in a room with uh,
yeah. Actually, this is a very good point, Vivek. Like when I was giving my TOEFL, there were I think 10, 15 other people in the room, and we all started speaking at the same time. So, like when I was speaking, there was someone right beside me who was also speaking, so it was kind of difficult to concentrate.
yeah.
So yeah, one thing about TOEFL, and yeah, that's- go on,
So
Vivek.
there is one more question. After I book my IELTS slot, will I receive any book? Yeah, you will receive one book. Like it may be IELTS, like Cambridge IELTS 13, 14, 15. Usually give the recent ones. I got the 13, and some of my friends also received the 13 one. So that's one of the things that you usually get with the tuition, with the what you say exam fee itself. You need not buy any books. And how do you compare? Yeah, is there any mock test available for writing and speaking? Like for which exam you are asking about, IELTS or TOEFL?
I think Rudraj, like you must also share your views. Like, why did you choose TOEFL or IELTS?
And
Yeah, I
also
mean,
there was one very long question that was asked to Rudraksh, and can someone, like I don't remember who asked that. Can you like again type it here so that we can answer it right now?
okay. While you're doing that, I'll just say, so I only picked TOEFL because like at the time I thought that it was cheaper, but then like the thing is the test might be a bit cheaper, but I think for sending the report to the college, it's a bit more expensive than IELTS. So I only picked TOEFL because it was cheaper at the time. Like difficulty wise, like see they both test your English knowledge. So at the end of the day, they're basically the same thing.
Also, yeah, one more thing I just forgot over here is, as I told you, band 9's, like if you're getting band 9, that does not mean that your English is 100% perfect. Your English is like you are a good English user. That's the description of a band 9 score. And similarly for TOEFL 120 and 120 doesn't mean that you're 100% like fluent in English or something like that. It depends. It really grades you about how much of a good English speaker you are. And coming to some questions regarding, like I don't know, like somebody asking related to applications and all, we have some time. We can take the questions right now if you're willing to. And yeah, one more thing about comparison of IELTS and TOEFL. Usually, IELTS is a bit recommended in European countries and Australia and Canada as well. North American universities, especially if you're targeting USA, then I really recommend you to give TOEFL, because for the scholarships point of view, if you're applying to any other local US-based scholarships, then they usually take the TOEFL score, not the IELTS one. IELTS is accepted by the university during the application, but it's not going to help you in your further run if you're looking for if you're banking on some scholarships. Like it may, but most of them prefer TOEFL in USA. In Canada, for visa purposes, IELTS is a bit easier to get into Canada rather than TOEFL. And these are the two major differences for the North American point of view. And yeah, there was one question for you, Rudraksh, for mock speaking test and writing test for TOEFL.
Okay, so I mean for speaking, like see, like I said, the TST prep, yeah, they have these videos where they just read the transcription out to you exactly how the test would be. So that's very, very useful. The biggest thing to remember when you're speaking is, because you're speaking into a mic, you have to speak very slowly and you have to speak very clearly because it's going to be recorded. And apart from the content, they also look for how well you pronounce the words and like your speaking rate. Yeah, so you like the thing is you can't use a lot of filler words because you only have max 1 minute to record an answer and you only get one chance to record. So you should try to like actively train your brain to not use filler words like or like, because that'll first of all lower your score and also take away time from your actual answer. So you should, when you're practicing, like make sure that you're trying to actively get rid of the habit of saying and make sure there's no like really long pauses inside like while you're speaking, because they also check for your speaking rate. And for writing, like I said, unfortunately for TOEFL, there's no like exactly someone who will check your writing for you. Like, I mean, as a free resource. But for GRE, it does. Like, there are resources for this. So there's one paid resource for $20. They'll mark two writing prompts for you. One essay of each type. So that's pretty useful. It's $20. It's like if you really need to like assess your writing, you can do it. Otherwise, there's also there's a free website called Crystal Ball something. So that is like a good rough indication of how well you will perform. But it's not exact, obviously, because it's not an official software. But it's pretty good. You could use it. It's called My Crystal Ball or something. Yeah, you could just Google that. Yeah. So,
and also there was one question related to the US citizen thing. So if you are a US citizen studying in India, then you like after you do your GRE, then you can just tell your admission committee of that particular university whether or they can take you or not, like consider your you as an exception or not, because usually they do. Because one of my senior was a US citizen, had got a TOEFL waiver as well. So yeah, you can just go like ask them directly. And so there was some question that what is the GRE score required for MIT? Honestly, there is no answer for this. And if you're looking for your yeah, one more thing that we skipped here is like we are talking about GRE general test. There are GRE subject tests as well. And if
Yeah.
you're looking for some masters in sub sciences like chemistry, physics, or biology, then you have to check what the requirements are. They usually have one more exam called GRE biology or GRE chemistry that you have to give alongside GRE general test, or maybe something like that. So you have to be very specific, and you have to be like you have to check their websites for the further information. And coming to what score is required for MIT, honestly, there is no such score that you can get into MIT. Even if you get 314 GRE and 6 out of 6 in the writing task of GRE, that doesn't guarantee your MIT admission. And honestly, there was one of my seniors, not from my college, but some other college. He got a 319 in GRE and around 4 in the writing part of GRE, and he got admitted to MIT. So it's not that the GRE thing is the only thing that they're looking for. And prerequisites, okay, this was answered, and there are other two questions. Top universities, your profile is going to be very, very important, and the way you write your profile, the way you reflect all these things in while submitting your application is going to decide your what we say your if you're getting an admit to that or not. And also the fact is also there. So you cannot bank on any one particular criteria and just tell that yeah, this is I have this and I'll definitely get this. No, there's nothing like that. And also one more thing that I wanted to answer here is if you're really concerned about how much your GRE and TOEFL score are valid, evaluate is not more than 10 to 15% that they look into it. It's just for the sake of cutoff, they just look into it. And coming to TOEFL, if you have good TOEFL or IELTS, any one of them, if you have good score in especially this speaking part and writing part, then you may get a TA assistantship, teaching assistantship easily as compared to others. And to get in top admissions, qualification, no. See, like I don't know, like I guess your point is like some rank or something like that. No, unfortunately, India is a rank-based country. We like produce rankers and all the stuff, but they are not that much obsessed about the rankers. They want you as a person. You have to justify why they should take you and what all things that you have in yourself. This is all the things that I can tell you about application point of view. And there was one question. I'm in my final year about coaching sites for GRE. Uh, Rutesh, can you take up this question? It's related to GRE.
And like, guys, do you think you need a separate event for the application procedure and all? Like, just put that in the comment section. So maybe if there is more response for that, we could do a separate event for that.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll get back. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, you can continue.
Like two questions have come about coaching sites for GRE. So for online, like I said, there's that YouTube channel GRE GMAT, which is very useful. There's also Magoosh, but like as far as I know, Magoosh is very expensive. Like it's very expensive, but they have a really good platform of like where they assess all your writing and so on. But if you don't want to go for that, then GRE GMAT is also there, which is very, very useful.
And yeah, one more thing I just wanted to point out here is I guess Rudraksh has given his GRE without taking any coaching materials and all the stuff, and still he got serial grade. So it clearly tells you that you need not have a coaching in your like pocket to get a good score. I took a coaching, but I ended up getting 308 only. But yeah, that was something else. So yeah, what are the best ways to improve writing? Okay. And
For TOEFL. For writing skill in TOEFL, I think you should just again, like I said, so the most important thing is practice. Like you have to make sure that you can type fast enough, and you know, like you need to know the format in which you should follow. Like the biggest thing in TOEFL is there's a strict format that you should follow. Like same with IELTS. Like I think Vivek had said that there's an intro, then bodies, and a conclusion. That's so there's a very strict format to follow, and like if you follow that format, then you can focus on the rest of your rest of like what content you're gonna actually write. So that I would say on TSU. They give like they have like a lot of practice sets of questions where they actually time it for you also. Like the video is I think 50 minutes long or a bit longer, and they actually give you the first task. They make you listen to the audio, and they then they make you read the prompt. Then you get to write for 20 minutes. So that's a very, very useful thing. they even time it exactly perfectly for you. So you should try to do that for practicing. Yeah, and another thing. So, like I said, so in listening, like in the TOEFL test, listening is not the only section where you have to listen. So, like in speaking, also you have to listen to your prompts, and then while doing that, you have to accordingly you have to speak. Even in writing, the first task you have to listen to something, then you have to read. So, the TOEFL test listening a lot. So you should be really good at like taking notes quickly. So that's another key thing to practice while you're doing these tests.
And yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention about IELTS is like there is no best course of like as Rudrash brought up my best score thing that's not there in IELTS. The exam that you give, suppose you have got an overall of 7 and you did not get 6.5 in one section, so you have to give your whole exam again. It's not that you have to like you can choose the best of the whole sections. It's not like that. And one more thing, to how many times you can do IELTS, it's you can give infinite number of times as long as you have money to give the exam fees and all those things. And the gap is usually it depends upon center because if your center has a regular slot availability, then you can get within 3 days or 4 days. But for some centers, it may take up to 15 days because the slots are usually booked, right? So it depends on the slots rather than the gap between two consecutive exams. So is there any platform that you are aware about the application procedures and universities or SOP and LOR? Coming to your question, like application procedure for you or universities is um, like uh, like we are not the authorized consultancy agency to be honest, but all this stuff you can find this on internet as well. Like all this stuff you can get SOP, LOR, and all those stuff. So
Yeah,
you can
so the
check.
best for application procedure, the program itself. Like that's the get the information. Like just whichever program you want to apply to, they have a like detailed how to apply and what all they require. So you should definitely consult that. So the first thing to do is figure out what you want to study and where you want to study.
Yeah, you can do your master's in CSE even if your branch is EC or any other non-subject as well. But you have to be very practical also because there's a huge competition in masters in CSE right now.
Okay. In case we don't have any doubts, like we can wrap it up in some time now.
Just wait for a minute. If no other questions, we can close it.
Yeah. And firstly, I really want to thank Vivek and Rudraj for being excellent presenters today and sharing all the experiences and making this event a huge success because 170 people per meeting of Whisper Club is really a whooping response. Like, I really want to appreciate them for the work they've done.
One more question. If you guys can take that.
See, if to answer in one sentence, like you can do it yourself. You need not depend on any consultancy. You just have to be like updated with respect to your deadlines and all the stuff and deadline to apply and all. And it's not what to like unless and until you want to like rely on someone else. It's really not required for you to go for consultancy and all. Like my seniors, like I don't know which college are you from, but from my seniors and all, they did not even take any kind of research consultancy, and they are in one of the top best universities out there in the world. So yeah, and yeah, it can be managed from your end. Essentially, thank you. Okay, because of And one more thing, in a nutshell, I just want to conclude. If you are like, see, one thing I just forgot here is, um, since this year, most of the places have waived off GRE, like almost for every other branches as well. But it's always a good thing to have in your pocket the GRE exam. But the one thing that I can tell you is that within the course of years, GRE is gonna be like figured out. especially for branches like chemical, material science, and all the stuff. Because nowadays, like currently when I'm looking for the university and the requirements, they did not specify that because of COVID they have waived off. They have waived off from earlier times as well. And yeah, it depends upon which particular course that you want to check. Suppose there is like if you're doing like if you want to do a master's, then they may require a GRE, but some places don't require a GRE if you're going for a PhD or something like that. So that completely depends on course that you want to go. But yeah, it's a good thing that you have in your pocket. So it's better that you give. It's not like I'm focusing on Canada or I'm focusing on Germany where GRE is not required. It's not like that. It's better to give. And coming to Germany, there are some places they do require GRE. So yeah, don't get confused by people saying that you don't need any GRE or something like that. And if you're specific about USA, then give TOEFL anyhow. Like, and if you're like, if you want to expand your what we say reach or something like that, then you can give IELTS. But uh, like I really want to say that giving a TOEFL or IELTS should not be a major decision because if you're looking for USA, then definitely give a TOEFL. In Canada, since some of the there is no fixed scholarships that usually require IELTS. So I guess you can give your IELTS or TOEFL both of them. Some places like in European Union and other countries in what you say Europe, you usually prefer IELTS. Sorry, usually prefer IELTS, and it's better to give IELTS if you want a better what you say, क्या बोलते हैं, a better network or something like that, a better chance or something. As is expected all over the globe, and also TOEFL is also right now being accepted in some of the European countries as well as Australia and all those stuff. So it completely depends upon you. But as we told that there are some scholarships which are open for only TOEFL, and there are some for IELTS. So yeah, I guess the session is end and the session is closed. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending this, and yeah. I hope this was a good webinar for you where you have gained some knowledge and about these exams, and all the best for your exams if you are giving in the recent, like in the near future.
I'm sure that it was very informative. And just to add something, like for the people who are asking for the recordings, like we'll upload a drive link on the Facebook page. So make sure you follow IEI Club on Facebook. And yeah, pretty much that. Like we're done with webinar, and if there are no more doubts, we can end this now.
A quick question, if is it okay? Excuse me.
Yeah, you can speak.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you all for your good explanation and every information. And about the question, many of my friends are saying like some scholarships are here and there, and I'm not so sure like where to look for. So is there anything that you're aware of, like having a platform that everyone could access and everyone could be aware of all the other internships out there?
Honestly, the best answer for this is Google, because we also are depending on Google itself for all our queries and some of the alumni. So if you're like from NIT Warangal especially, then there are some seniors out there from each branch, and you can like consult them for your what you say any queries that you have. And coming to your review of your SOP and LOR and all the stuff, that is usually like some consultancy takes charges for that, and usually it's around 2,000 for each SOP or something like that. I don't remember. One of my friends is taking consultancy, and like it depends upon you yourself, like how much you want to like expend and all. And if coming to scholarships, you have to search, and like there is no other option. Like people usually search for scholarships after they get admitted to some place. Suppose like if you're getting admitted into some X university, then they look for the scholarships. It's not that beforehand they usually go for before they usually don't fill out any applications because they are not yet sure that where they will land up. So if like see, these all are not that great. Like you need not to have any consultancy in our stuff for this. But yeah, if you really want some major help or you really want to bank on someone else for your application and all, then you can go for it. But